let's just kick off because we don't have much time. But just very quick introduction about ourselves for some of you may not know us. We're the largest law firm, Southeast Asian law firm in Southeast Asia, right? And we've got footprint in, okay, hang on, it's not, yep, in 9 countries. So essentially what I'm going to go through today would be, now, most of these countries, okay? So here you have on the left side, countries with an overarching comprehensive data protection law, right? Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines. On the right, highlighted in red would be those with, obviously the whole column is about, countries without an omnibus data protection law. But the highlighted in red would be those with some form of sectoral laws dealing with data privacy, right? Or there's a draft bill that is picking out at us, okay? So let's start off with the big powerhouse, China. Now, China obviously is known for its perhaps less than sterling track record on human rights. So when you talk about privacy, which is an inherent right of humans, right, of individuals, you think, what? Do they even bother about privacy? Well, you'll be quite surprised. They actually have several pieces of legislation that deal with privacy, right? Now, first off, let's look at the Constitution. Because understanding the Constitution will determine the setting for how judges, as well as how you should be interpreting some of these pieces of legislation. Now, first off, if we look at Article 38 of their Constitution, it talks about the right of reputation, and it simply says that the dignity of an individual is inviolable. So that essentially means that, well, their notion of privacy is not really about, keeping your life secret, giving you a right of privacy. It's about, hang on, no one should be defaming you, no one should be, casting aspersions at you. So a right of reputation, okay? And then you've got this very queer Article 40 in the Constitution, which talks about the privacy of correspondence. So for them, it's all right to bulldoze people, who are sort of laying down along the road using a tank. But, if you send me an email or a postal mail, I will not touch you, in that sense. So, okay, so that's a bit queer, right? And then there's another piece of legislation, tort law. Now, in the UK, we know tort law is about battery, it's about, it's essentially a tortious act, right? For them, well, it's a different notion, right? But essentially still gives an individual the right to sue for tortious liability. And this is based on if someone infringes upon the civil rights and interests of an individual, then you are subject to a possible tortious liability. So what are civil rights and interests? And if you look at how it's defined, it doesn't give you, a real right of privacy because it's bundled together with a lot of rights. It's rights over property, right to be able to use a trademark, right to be able to assert copyright, right to reputation. And in there is slotted right of privacy as well, okay? Then we have a very important, right, piece of law. Now, don't mind all the long titles of these pieces of legislation because when it's translated, that's how it is, okay? So there's this, one of the highest level legislative authority in China, the National People's Congress. Now, they came up with a binding decision called the Decision of the Standing Committee of National People's Congress on Strengthening Network Information Protection, okay? So what it entails is this, right? It came to law in the end of December 2012, and essentially internet service providers, they are required to abide by what you see. Wow, this looks like EU notions of data privacy, right? You see some of the principles dealing with consent, purpose, protection, right? So before you can collect, you need to notify the individual, you need to publicize your rules for collection, and you need to, this one doesn't have the pointer. In the second last bullet, Article 3, it deals with them being, having an obligation on them to protect the individual's personal electronic data. So this is electronic data. Now, one criticism, though, of some of these China pieces of legislation would be the fact that they are not quite well defined. So they talk about internet service providers, but they don't define who are internet service providers. So your typical notions of internet service providers would be, those that provide internet access, right? But do they also extend to website operators, e-commerce operators, so on and so forth? The fact that they left it lax, right, or unclear, actually allows the authorities to perhaps go after an operator who thought he didn't need to comply with it, okay?